Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning everyone and welcome to quarterly webinar for Klaipedos nafta. Today Nasdaq Vilnius is hosted by CEO Mr. Mindaugas Jusius and CFO of the company Mr. Jonas Lenkšas. Before we proceed with the presentation, I will shortly introduce you with the agenda. Firstly, Mr. Jusius will comment Klaipedos nafta financial results of the fourth quarter of 2018. And right after the presentation, we will open the floor for the questions. All questions will be addressed using question box on the right side of the screen. Mr. Jusius, I invite you to start with the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to use the opportunity to present our fourth quarter as well as annual results. To start with a short introduction about the company for those who joined maybe for the first time. So Klaipedos nafta is an infrastructure operator operating oil and LNG terminals in Klaipėda port in Lithuania, as well as in charge of development of floating FSRU terminals around the world. Our mission is to ensure reliable and effective supply of LNG and shipment of oil products. And during the year 2018, we also had updated our values as well as some other internal processes accordingly. In terms of the infrastructure we are operating at the moment, we have two large oil terminals. One is based in Klaipedos port. That's the main business activity generating a major source of revenues at the moment of the company. There is a Subačius storage terminal near Panevėžys on the mainland, and there are nowadays two LNG terminals operating in Klaipėda, floating FSRU LNG terminal, which is enabling access to global LNG markets to Lithuania and other regional markets, as well as a small-scale terminal, which construction has been completed finally completed in October 2018. But during the whole year, we had already made some commercial operations. It is important to mention that the only terminal which is a regulated asset, this is Klaipėda LNG terminal. So the company is granted compensation of the cost plus fixed profit margin on the activities of Klaipėda LNG terminal. All the rest of activities are purely based on commercial activities. In terms of highlights for the last quarter, I would like to mention several. We are continuing strengthening the governance of the company, and we have the audit committee members joined. New audit committee members joined. As well, we have a new management board member appointed, who has a really very wide and deep knowledge of oil and gas business globally. That's Jan Bradshaw from UK. And internally, we also made organizational structure changes, establishing a new business unit, Global LNG Development Unit, which is led by Tadas Matulionis, who works in the company for years already. The main goal of this organizational setup is to strengthen KN global activities. We see that we have built a pretty strong pipeline of potential projects during the year. Now we have to concentrate on selecting the right projects which have highest potential to be realized and to pass through final investment development stage. For those who are maybe not so much aware, during the whole year, company was putting a lot of attention and resources towards international activities with the goal to invest into floating LNG import infrastructure, and as well to get to earn operational and maintenance contracts, long-term contracts, which should assure additional sources of revenues for the company. It was also very important decision taken during the last quarter by the government of Lithuania as well as the parliament, who had approved amendments of LNG law, and this means that KN is having an obligation to acquire FSRU vessel after 2024. So I would consider this is very good news for company stakeholders because of several reasons. The first reason is that these changes should enable us to reduce the cost of infrastructure for Lithuanian gas market users by approximately 23 million euros, or it means around 30-40% from the current levels. That's a very significant amount, which should reduce the pressure on our LNG activities. Secondly, this is a good news for industry, which is planning to invest into gas infrastructure and to use the source of energy in the future. We see that gas will play a very significant role while transiting or shifting towards renewables in Lithuania. But last but not least, and maybe even most important from financial perspective, that acquisition of such an asset would mean, which would be regulated. That was the essence of the new law. Should as well improve KN's financial results after 2024, because the value of the assets which will be regulated and is planned to be acquired stands in between of 140 and 160 million euros. In terms of other corporate activities, I would like to mention an important decision taken by the board of KN to give part of bonus, annual bonus in the form of KN shares. So this could mean also that the range of shareholders will increase, but for me it's most important that we expect a much higher engagement of our team and dedication towards achieving ambitious goals. We also had invested into organizational culture changes. We are aiming for more flexibility and efficiency in our activities. And definitely KN remains a very active player, stakeholder in local society in Klaipedos region, and not only in Klaipedos as well, contributing to the different initiatives across the whole country. I would rather skip this slide at the moment and we'll jump towards financial results. So talking about financial results, the fourth quarter of the year was comparably weaker. We had faced several challenges with oil product transshipments, even if some business volumes had recovered, but we had a cold season, which required additional resources for transshipments, and our variable costs were higher during fourth quarter if we compare to the warm period seasons. So during the fourth quarter, the company's net profit equals to 0.2 million euros, and total revenue stands at 24.2, while the EBITDA is 4.5 million euros. So what are the key components of these results? We are dividing our business into three business sources. So still the major source of profit and revenues remains oil transshipments, and we can see that during the last quarter, the third and the fourth, the result was almost equal, around 1 million euros of net profit, and LNG terminal result was worse. We have some cyclic impact in terms of, especially in terms of LNG terminals, where we have regulated revenues, which are typically are higher during the first quarter and then gradually decreasing to reach the regulated amount which is expected to be received by the company. And the second effect, which also made LNG terminal result worse, was US dollar getting stronger. So this impact is really temporal on our books, since the activity is regulated, and these costs will be compensated for us in the nearest future, during actually the next year. We are steadily investing into business development activities, and we are planning also for the next year that investments into business development for international projects should stand at around 1 million euros. And this amount is split quite equally because that's related with our human resources mostly. So we have to compare annual results by business lines and start talking from oil transshipments. We see that the total amount of oil products transshipped through our terminals has dropped by 7% during the last year. And the main difference comes from our key customer, Orlen Lietuva, which is a refinery based in Lithuania. Excuse me. So the refinery managed to sell more products in local markets in Baltic countries, Poland, and as well Ukraine, that influenced the need or the amount of the products that have to be sent over the seas. And you can see that we managed to keep more or less the same transit volumes, which is a very good achievement, having in mind pretty high tensions between Russia and Belarus. Also, Russia applying certain sanctions for limiting transshipments of oil products through Baltic country seaports. In terms of revenues, revenues of oil transshipment activities are lower by 2.7 million euros, but it is also important to mention that this difference was quite heavily influenced by the fact that in 2017 we managed to sell some oil products which were remaining after cleaning the waters, and we didn't have such a transaction in 2019. So this is probably the main difference if we compare those 2 years. And if to summarize 2018, the year started much better than expected, while it ended slightly worse than expected. But in overall, in average, we managed to achieve actually results that we were setting for ourselves as a goal in the beginning of the year. LNG terminal results is lowered in 2018, and still majority of this result is influenced by the large-scale terminal, and those results they can be easily forecasted. And after 5 years of activities, there should be an audit, and all the differences should be compensated by the regulator. Some additional impact came as well from started activities of a small-scale terminal, where we completed the construction. So naturally, the depreciation came into force of these assets, and as well as we expected in the very beginning of these activities, we have to invest to achieve a break-even point. In terms of reloading station, I would like just to mention that this is a pretty unique project globally. That's why we are so proud that we managed to complete it. It is having quite high flexibility. It's possible to load the station from the jetty, as well as to do the bunkering operations from the station through our oil terminal jetty. Last year, most of activities were related with truck loading activities, and this station as well is connected to our oil terminal, which should enable us reducing operational cost for heating oil products while assuring transshipment operations. So if to look at annual structure of our revenues, then we see this summarized results. In total, the revenues reached 100 million euros, which is by 6% less approximately than a year ago. And EBITDA is mostly coming from oil terminal activities, as well from large-scale LNG terminal. So the total EBITDA in 2018 stands at 26.9 million euros, net profit 11.5. And key financial indicators which I would like to highlight: return on equity during the year dropped to 5.8%, while in 2017 we had 8.7%. One of the reasons is that there is some uncertainty of how we should implement the Parliament decision regards the purchase of FSRU, and this uncertainty leads us to keeping quite high excess capital at the moment in the company, which is influencing ROE result. But of course, drop in profits also had an impact on this KPI. Looking if to look at the comparison than the forecast which we had latest updated and shared with you. We are pretty in line with this forecast in our results. Instead of expected 11.5 million euros, we have a result 11.5. But again, if to remember at the beginning of the year, we were less pessimistic and expecting 10.2 million euros profit. Investment program is going on according to our plans, and since we finished small scale terminal development, we are now focusing on completion of oil terminal expansion. And during 2018, most of investments were dedicated for oil terminal. Our main goal is to add on additional tanks, which would enable us accumulating bigger amounts for the customers and improving our attractiveness in the market. The second very important goal is to be able to provide services for petrochemical products. And for this purpose, we have almost completed new tanks park during 2018, and we plan to start first shipments of petrochemical products already in April this year. There are a couple of pictures illustrating the progress of construction works on our site in Klaipedos. I believe it's also very important to hear our outlook for upcoming year. So we expect and target to recover back to 7.2 million euros of oil products transshipments during the year, which is the similar level as in 2017. And we are targeting yearly revenues around 106 million euros and EBITDA of 26.5. Net profit, if we reach this result, would stand at around 11.4 million euros. So that was a short introduction of 2018 results, as well with a short outlook for the nearest future. Open for your questions.
Mr. Jusius, thank you very much for your presentation. Before we proceed with the questions, I would like to remind you that you can still send in your questions in the section on the right side of the screen. And the first question was received in advance, and it is the following. Does Klaipedos nafta find a new FSRU in Kaliningrad as a serious competition for Lithuanian FSRU in Klaipėda? There are some companies in Central Eastern Europe that buy LNG by trucks from terminal in Klaipėda, and there is a risk that price of LNG in Kaliningrad can be lower than in other terminals in CEE. For example, Polish company Duon. And if you find it as a competition, do you have any plans how to counteract?
Okay, thank you for this question. It is, I would say, an important. I think you should mute. I think it's important to highlight that the competition. We highly see the competition with the Kaliningrad terminal. I would say this even maybe a good news for our company in terms of in terms of the need of having a terminal in Klaipėda is becoming even obvious, because if previously blackout opportunity was treated as a very low probability because of transit of gas through Lithuania to Kaliningrad. Nowadays, having a terminal in Kaliningrad, the risk of the same blackout is much higher. So the service of security of supply, which is being provided by Klaipedos LNG terminal, becomes obvious and creating much more importance than previously. Secondly, it's important to mention that small-scale activities are not developed yet, and I haven't heard that those will be actually developed in Kaliningrad. The jetty is in the sea, and there is no opportunity for neither truck loading, neither bunkering operations from Kaliningrad. So the appearance of FSRU in Klaipėda actually is not making any difference for our small-scale activities as well as for large-scale operations. In addition, maybe I should also mention that we should look wider to the region. If we talk about the competition, then we already face the competition from Kaliningrad area in terms of small-scale operations, but not from FSRU, which came recently, but from liquefaction facilities, which are working in Kaliningrad as well as Pskov. But there are also new developments in Kaliningrad area plant, and the capacity should be increased. So that's the major, I would say, threat in terms of competition for small scale when loading trucks, but not the large floating terminal.
Thank you very much. And the next question is about the new strategy. When do you expect the new long-term strategy to be released?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for this question. And according to our plans, we expect to be finished our new strategy by end of the March. And accordingly, we expect to release it. So I think the short answer.
Thank you very much. And there is the next question. How do you see the impact to KN revenues having possible Estonia Paldiski LNG terminal plans in mind?
I haven't heard recently any news from Paldiski terminal, and I would like to say that I see other developments happening in Estonia, and the most important one is Baltic connector, which is connecting Estonian and Finnish markets, actually passing the same site where Paldiski terminal has been planned. And I had very recent discussions with Finnish market players who are very eager to get the access to Klaipėda LNG terminal and to use this opportunity as well to improve the competition in the market, but as well to gain from this infrastructure, which is already working in 3 Baltic countries. So I would rather say that Baltic connector is the nearest opportunity to get additional customers for Klaipedos LNG terminal, as well as to gain additional value for users in the north. But I can't comment anything on Paldiski since I haven't heard about this.
Thank you very much. And is there a chance that the FSRU will be acquired earlier than 2024?
Yeah, we had evaluated this opportunity, and at the moment we are having lease contract till the year of 2024 plus an option to buy out after 2024. So we are not having plans to implement the acquisition earlier at the moment, and if such opportunity would come, we would definitely consider it. But at the moment, the contract we are having is pretty fixed, and we don't see as well alternative or different options in the market, having in mind the contract we're having with Hyog.
And here is the next question. When would you expect first real results from international LNG projects?
Very first results are also seen in our balance sheet and P&L already in 2017 and 18, where we had been compensated for some activities and paid advisory fees. Our ambition has changed, and we would like to primarily invest into the project company, invest into the equity, and target winning the O&M contract, which would create much more tangible value for our shareholders. And if the question is when the revenues from investments might come, I have to say that typically investigation phase takes a year or two before FID is taken. After that follows the construction of the infrastructure of approximately 2 years. So if we are lucky, and our goal is to have at least one project past FID stage in 2019, which means that revenues should come in 2-3 years period.
One more question arrived. Is your estimated oil transshipment volume increase for 2019 based on larger transit or Mažeikių volumes?
If to compare 2018 and this year, then definitely during the last year the drop came from Mažeikių oil refinery, and we expect some recovery from Mažeikiai, but we also have a strong background to further grow with transit products, and this is also related with our new infrastructure functionality, which enables new products to be attracted to our terminal, and also some new activities that importing products by ships and then distributing in local regions through trucks or railway.
Thank you very much, and currently we are waiting for more questions. There is one more question. Can you give any indications for dividends this year?
Well, our indications should be set in our dividend policy, and which says that we are targeting to pay out from not less than half of annual profit in terms of dividends. And as I mentioned earlier, we are having excess capital at the moment. So depending how much clarity we will have on the implementation of FSRU acquisition project, the final decision will be taken in March after having audited results. But I would guess from today's perspective that we should follow our dividend policy.
When could we expect exact impact of IFRS 16 to your 19 figures to be published?
We are planning to do this together with our audited results, which we will issue till end of March, latest. So when our audited reports and results are ready, it will be also explained the impact of IFRS 16 to our figures.
Please send your question if you would like to do it. Just the time is now to do that. Mr. Jusius, thank you for your presentation, and Mr. Lenkšas for your answers given. Participants, thank you for joining. All questions are answered now, and also record of the presentation will be available in the Nasdaq Baltic YouTube channel webinar playlist and on the company's website KNLT. Have a good day, and let's hear each other next time.